Well, I want to welcome you to a third week of this stewardship sermon series, Hands on Church. Do you guys know what those pictures are? You know what that means? Can you do it with me? All right, so we go like this. We go like, this is the church. This is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, I'm sure you guys did. The first week, my friend Reverend John Brewer was here to preach, and I know not everybody was in the room, or not here that Sunday, but some of you were. And he told us about the importance of creating and maintaining a strong connection. That to be a hands-on church, you have to have a strong connection. A strong connection to others, a strong connection to one another, and a strong connection especially to God. Last week, I shared why being a hands-on church requires both empathy and compassion, the ability to be with someone in their suffering. And Hal Duong came up after I had shared a little bit and shared some of the most powerful and candid stories about his life and how his experiences moved him and his family toward a compassionate life here as a part of this congregation, and especially with the safe parking folks with whom they became friends. And since this is our third week in the series, I'm guessing that you all can tell me this third week, after connection, after compassion, what the theme for the day is. Oh, yeah, you nailed it. Okay, good. Courage. I knew you'd get it. That's why I asked you instead of them. I knew you were paying attention. Courage is the theme for this third week. And when we think of courageous people and courageous acts, what kind of people do you think of? Tell me about some courageous people. Friends. Okay, all right. What? God. Okay. Tell me about someone doing something that's courageous. Firefighters. Okay, what? Malala. Police. Right. People who risk their lives, right? To save someone from a burning building or to do something heroic is what we usually think of when we think of courage. We think of something that is life-risking and terrifying and exciting and adventurous all at the same time. Daring acts of courage. And when we think of people who are courageous, we often think of people who aren't afraid of anything, it seems. I mean, courage, when I asked that question this week in Bible study, one of the answers, what's courage? It's the lack of fear. You think that's true? No, you are right about that. But courage is more than all of those things, more than just heroic deeds and acts and risking your life. Courage isn't reserved just for people who do life-saving acts. And courage definitely does not mean that you're not afraid. In fact, I would say courage starts with fear and being able to do something even when you're afraid. Example, you did something wrong. You broke something. You hurt your sibling. Telling the truth that you did it, even though you're afraid you're going to get in trouble, and you probably are, that takes courage. A lot of courage. Telling the truth. One writer said, after explaining that the root for the word courage, C-O-R, is the Latin word for heart. The Latin root for the word courage is heart. So courage is a heart word. it's in one of its earliest forms. This is Brene Brown. I don't know if you've read any of her stuff or heard her on TED Talks about vulnerability, but she says in one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all of one's heart. To speak one's mind by telling all of one's heart. That's what courage meant. And when we only think of courage as something that's heroic or some brave deed, we miss all the moments when people actually speak honestly and openly about who they are and their experiences, good and bad, maybe especially bad, when we're willing to tell our stories, where we're not the hero, where we may be vulnerable, even embarrassed, even in trouble. So I've asked a few courageous, hands-on church folks to come up and speak openly and honestly from their hearts about who they are and their experiences. And so I'm going to ask if you'd come up now just together, and Jev, if you'll share first. You don't always get to see these folks and hear these folks, and I'll tell you why, because Jev is usually down the hall with a group of teenagers 4 out of 5 Sundays, 3 out of 4 Sundays a month, so you don't usually get to see him. And Tim and Jamie, you don't get to see very much because they're usually working 6 days a week. And so they got today off to be able to share. So, Jev, if you want to share, and Tim, we can sit down.
Okay. Good morning. It's good to be here. When Kelly first asked me to talk a little bit about courage, I was a little thrown off because I don't really see many choices I make as courageous because I take the easy way out a lot of times. It feels better and it's a lot easier. And so I was like, what am I gonna say? I don't really feel like I have any courageous stories. He's like, well, what about when you got hired? And I was like, what about it? And then, it clicked to me. I took a little bit of a step out in faith when I first got hired here. I remember after the hiring committee had a couple interviews with me, and we did background checks, and we did all sorts of fun things. Bless her heart, Colleen Rutherford. Is she here today? It's too bad. She would have had a red face after this. But I remember she was on the committee of folks who kind of vetted me, and she was the one that got to call me to let me know the good news that I was going to be hired full-time and at this wonderful church. And so she called me. She's like, hey, I want you to know you're the one. We chose you. And I was like, this is great. I'm so excited. This is such a wonderful opportunity for me. And she's like, just call Pastor Kelly, and he has the details. Call him tomorrow. I was like, okay, no problem. So my wife and I went out and celebrated, and, we're both working full-time now. We can start paying back our grad school loans, etc. We were very pumped. And I called Kelly about 9 a.m. the next morning. I was like, so what's the details? He's like, well, we forgot to tell you, but we kind of don't have money to pay you for the stuff. And I was like, what? No. He's like, no, you're hired. We're just not going to pay you money for a while? And I was like, oh, that was not what I was understanding the transaction to be. And so I remember kind of hanging up the phone. I was like, I got to call you back. I have no answer for you right now. But I sat down with my wife afterwards, and I was like, I'm just so compelled, honestly, by the kingdom work and the people at this church that I want to take a shot at this place. And so for a number of months, I worked for free, and it was still a beautiful, wonderful experience that I never really questioned whether or not I was supposed to be here or not. And finally the money did come in, and thank goodness, because I have school loans to repay and rent to pay and things like that. So that was my courageous story. And then I guess my second one, I was thinking about it as well, and this is really more about the youth than me, but as most of you know, we have a lot of youth from different backgrounds. We have kids who were in the Safe Parking Program, who still are in the Safe Parking Program, who used to be there. We have kids who've been housed their whole lives. We have kids whose language, first language is not English. We have kids of different creeds, backgrounds, races, contexts, etc. And every week they come together with little or no fighting. And I find that shocking. Because I think they are willing and courageous enough to put aside a lot of their differences and stories, and willing to close their mouths and open their ears and listen to their brothers and sisters. And for me, that's one of the most courageous things I've seen in a number of years. So kudos to our young ones.
We just were trying to raise the money. We knew it was going to come. We just had a little work to do. And one of the things that Jeff didn't say was when I told him that, we kind of had him on hold for a little while. And I said, just give me a little more time. I'm working with some folks. And he said, well, I've got a couple of other interviews, but I feel like this is the place. So I'll wait, and I'll let them know. And for me, that was also part of the courage to not take the easy way out. I want to let Tim come and share some of Tim and Jamie and Chandler and Tristan and Alex's story with us. Tim?
So, our life experiences pretty much landed us in the parking lot here about almost a year and a half ago. And, if you think about it, from a third person, how that would be, you think that might be terrifying and, just the hope is gone, there's no light. But I'll tell you all something. Those 3 months we spent out there were some of the 3 funnest months we ever had in our life. Met a lot of good people. This guy, Jev, Arden, where you at? There you go. Love that guy. I got to get involved with this church. I was never involved in any kind of church in my life. Just no reason for it. Very large amount of distrust for people that throw their religion in your face and and judge you to your face. And although I've known the whole time you're not supposed to do that, but it took a lot of courage, I suppose, and a lot of heart for my wife and I, our marriage lasted through all that. I dare anybody to make your marriage last through a bad experience like that. It's pretty rough. The kids have always kept up a great demeanor. Alex sometimes says she misses being here in the parking lot. It's just because it was, we had a good time. And I work in the food service industry. I'm a waiter and I bartend and stuff. And last night I had this party of 5 come in. This is on the point of courage. There's this lady. She's probably about 8, 9 years older than me. Her husband, their daughter with Down syndrome, who looked 13 years old. Her ID says she was 25 as a trip, and they're her elderly parents who had dementia and Alzheimer's. And these folks proceeded to drink beer, all 5 of them. And I had some of my coworkers going, "Can you believe they're letting them do that?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Why? Why? Life is for the living. They're still alive. Let's have some fun." They're connecting with each other. And I found out that the 2 older people had dementia. When she pulled me aside, she goes, "You're so patient with us. It's so great." I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I do. I do a lot like what he does. I make connections with people every day on smaller levels and for different motives, but, I really do make connections with people. And then on Wednesdays here, I make connections with people, too. At least I hope I do. And I can't imagine my life without this place. I really can't. And if he, stopped the Wednesday dinners, I'd be crushed. It's my Sunday. I work from Thursday through Sunday, and on Wednesday nights, that's my end of weekend. That's my Sunday, and that's when I'm here. And that's when I get to come here and make connections with people and feel the warmth and the love of this place. And I thank every one of you, every one of you with all my heart, and so is my family. It's just great, and I wish more churches out there were like this one. I really do. But I don't think try not to be too long-winded. I don't know what else to say, but thank you all very much.
Can I say what you're doing today? Okay, I don't want to give anything away, especially if it doesn't happen this afternoon. But Okay. So, I don't know if you know, being a service person in a restaurant, especially wait staff, is not the most reliable, steady, predictable source of income. Because it depends on the flow, depends on the tips. And Tim's been doing that, picking up every shift he could to keep things going. And so today he has his second interview about cooking for someone else, but not on Wednesdays, picking up a regular, reliable, predictable income as a chef for one of the nearby restaurants. And I told him, just let him know that there's like 150 people who'll probably come at some point to eat there. Village Cafe in Redmond. So, they're probably going to pick up a little more business because they hired you. But make sure you get off on Wednesdays. And I'm just grateful for all the connections that Tim and Jamie and Chandler and Alex and Tristan have made here, but also that they've opened their hearts to us and let us be a part of their lives. Because courage is heart work. It takes courage to be a hands-on church. Owning and sharing our stories, speaking our stories in truth, even when we're not the heroes of the story, that's the bravest thing we'll ever do. When we share our stories of vulnerability and imperfection honestly with one another, we are doing heart work. We are being courageous. We are doing what Paul reminded the church in Corinth to do when he said, keep alert, as Meredith said courageously. Keep alert. Stand firm in your faith. Be courageous. Be strong. And let all that you do be done in love. I don't think those are separate thoughts, by the way. I think the last sentence is a summary of the first. Staying alert, standing firm in your faith, being courageous and strong is doing all that you do in love. Next week will be our final week for our series, our fourth and final week. And it will be commitment week for our stewardship season, so we'll have folks committing to join the church. We'll also be asking for folks to fill out their commitment card. If you didn't get one of these, I'm surprised. I don't know how that happened. But there are some more back by the usher's table. There are some in the celebration space. And as I've shared the past 2 weeks, I know that not everyone has the capacity to increase their pledge. Okay, I know that some folks may even have to reduce their pledge because their situation has changed. So when I say this, I want to acknowledge that this doesn't apply to everyone when I ask to prayerfully consider increasing your pledge significantly for 2015 so that we can continue to do the heart work, the courageous work that we do here as a congregation together with our community. Not for our community, not for folks who live in our parking lot, but with them. And if you haven't already done so, I hope you'll fill out your 2015 commitment card. Bring it in next Sunday or mail it in, drop it off. I know some of you already have. Some of you already made your commitment. Some of us have made that commitment to increase by 10% or 20% or some, I know, even 30% or more. Because we know that not everybody will be able to increase and some may need to decrease. So whether you're able to increase your pledge or your giving or not, I want to thank you for your commitment, your heart work that we do together. No matter how much you give, no matter how much you increase if you're able. Because it takes courage to be a hands-on church. And giving and pledging and making a commitment takes courage. It is heart work. It's not just writing a check. It's taking a risk. It's being honest and vulnerable and doing the work from our heart. Because as Stephanie and Kevin reminded us early in the service, where your treasure is, there your heart will be too. Amen.